Hello, everybody. This is Tiffany.
What's up? This is Ariel.
And this is episode
23, baby.
Woo!
Hey, doing work. Move it. Hey.
I slightly forgot because we missed y'all.
We definitely, I just want y'all to know my life was in shambles. And
Life is happening, y'all.
listen, I had to grab a shovel, scoop that thing up, put it in a box.
Dig.
Y'all can't see her digging this hole. But I had to scoop this thing up, put it in the box, tie a pretty bowl on. You know how you just pick up your mess, put it in the box, you cover it up, and then you put a bow on it, and you act like it really ain't just a bunch of old receipts in that box and a lot of, Dollar Tree receipts.
But what about when you didn't know you had that mess? Like, you've been here in the path, and you like, when did this mess get here?
Wait a minute. Let me tell you.
I need a shovel?
I had to go buy
it. It was in the trunk. What do you... Like, I pulled that away for the winter. I didn't think it was time. I had to go buy a shovel. Right.
Let me just tell you. I didn't even have a shovel in the trunk. Right. I was like, it's like when it's raining and you got an umbrella, but you inside of your job, but your umbrella in your car. Ooh. And you like, now this is quite an interesting situation.
And
what
I mean, it's coming down.
And
you got on flip-flops.
I was about to say that because I cannot stand it. Don't get
and
my
not
feet.
Good flip-flops. Like the cheap one that is going to... Yep, it's gonna pop.
And then you're gonna fall in the middle of the street, and that's gonna be a tragedy. Listen, my life was an old flip flop, y'all, and it was raining. But I just want you to know,
it didn't even have no grip on the bottom. Listen, it was worn. It's just gonna slide. Ooh.
Like a skate. You hear me? I was on an ice skating rink. But this is why it's important to keep good people around you. This is why it's important to be humble. Mm-hmm. And this is why it's important to not be afraid to ask for help. And I definitely had to ask for help. I had to humble myself, but I also had the ability to see what is happening right now. See, I had the ability to ask the right people for help to get me in the space that I needed to be in, and I'm back in this thing, y'all. But let me tell you, perspective is a MOFO, and clarity is key. So I am crystal clear on a lot of different things right now that will definitely come up in a different podcast. And I am very clear on how I need to move forward.
Yeah.
In a lot of different things. And that the perspective that I had was my perspective came from comfort and familiarity, and I had to get out of a comfort zone forcefully. And I had to understand that just because you're familiar with something or just because you're familiar with someone,
you about to say a word,
does not mean nothing. You just
Where's my church fan? I need it.
Listen, because we're offering plates will be going around. Okay, in a minute.
Don't mean not a thing.
I'm gonna ask you to put your money in the bucket. Okay,
Nothing.
We don't mind
the monetary value is 0.
Listen, we don't mind the kind that jingles, but we prefer the kind that folds. Okay, put it in the plate.
That's
and now I'm like, yo, I'm 38 and we just now getting here. But like I told y'all before,
well, we doing work
by any means necessary. But I'm here though. Boom. So
let me just say how proud I am, y'all, of this woman, because she just went into the mall to do work. And it's very easy when you're put in situations that you're not familiar to be in to just kind of toss your hands up and be like, you know what I'm not going to do?
This.
None of it.
We was a millisecond away from that. Let me just tell you. It was a millisecond. So close.
Every time she even shares things that she deals with, she's feeling, I feel honored because I know there was a point in time that would have never happened.
Ever.
And she just would be doing it on her own. And I think the growth of you understanding that handling it isn't always only the action. It's that that mental spirit part of going through something too.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, so that I may not have been a resolution, right? But I think in you sharing, knowing, hey, let me not just internalize this, hold it in, keep it there.
You know I would. Oh.
I'm going to get it out. I'm going to put it in the atmosphere. I'm going to vent about it. I'm going to get it out. And every time that happens, I see the level of growth. Let me explain to y'all what our dynamics is besides the dynamic. This woman's my lifeline, okay? So I discover often that I don't like people in a way I used to.
Yo, almost every day around 5 o'clock, she calls me and says, I don't like people. Almost every day, y'all. Almost.
Close.
But the interesting part is when she says that, I go, me neither.
Right. She's like, I've been here.
I
got snacks, popcorn.
Brought popcorn. I got some fruit that I cut up. What you need? I got water.
And I had to respectfully allow myself to deal with the world without my lifeline.
Oh, you so silly.
Can you tell them about the screen when I talk to you?
So it was about a week. I needed a week to get my life literally, y'all. I needed a week to get my life together. And I am very available for my friends. Matter of fact, it's so interesting because when I don't answer my phone, everybody goes into panic. Like, are you kidnapped? Were you in a car accident? Like, is your phone broke? Like, what's happening? I don't understand. Somebody needs to explain something to me. And I'm all like, I was asleep, but thank you for putting out an APB on me. So when she finally called me, once I was receiving phone calls, because I wasn't receiving phone calls or text messages very well at that time. Sometimes I have to get quiet and silence everything around me so that I can think and so that I can focus and problem solve. And a lot of times when I problem solve for people, I can talk it out with them. But when I problem solve for me, I definitely have to get quiet and I have to like write stuff down and pray. And that's what I was doing. So when she called me and I answered the phone, the holler on the phone, ah! We're back in this thing. Oh my God. It was so funny. I was at work trying to not bust up. It was so, y'all just had to hear, but it was, first of all, you need to get you somebody that is that excited to talk to you when you haven't talked to them in a few days. Like, you need somebody that values you that way. Because I value her like that. Like, when we talk, I definitely be like, hey, turn that, whatever, boo, hey. Like, we do a whole dance every time we get on the phone. As if we don't talk 6 times to 12 times a day. Each time I answer the phone, it's like, what up, boo?
Right.
It's never like a, what you want?
Right.
It's always a, so, what are we going to talk about now?
And see, I think that's why, I knew that that's what you needed. I just didn't like it. But I knew that's what was happening. So I had to, have these pep talks in myself like, soon and very soon.
Soon and very soon.
Things are going to change.
You so petty.
And then she answered the phone. And I'm telling you, I literally felt like I had been holding my breath for 7 days. And then I was like,
hey.
Hallelujah.
But it was so funny because as soon as we started talking, you were like, you good? Cool. So let me tell you what's been going on for these past 7 days while you've been missing and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, my word. What?
Was out here busy.
Oh, he's multitasking. He's phoning a friend.
When we talk about trash, he is
Side
the trash
note,
compactor. Okay.
I'm definitely chewing gum, and I believe that I just smacked 4 times.
Oh, you did?
So if you guys heard that, I apologize. Continue.
But yeah, I'm super I'm super proud of that because I think that type of growth is important, and sometimes we don't see it when we're doing it and we've gotten to that next level. But every time you do it, I'd be like, there was a point in time I wouldn't have known none of it. And I humbly am grateful every time. And I feel like I generally I'm like that with all my friends. Like I recognize when this didn't have to happen. I think that's important with anyone you love and care about, is to retain a certain level of humility instead of entitlement of what you're supposed to get. Just humbled, because you know, we forget sometimes that we have access to doors that everyone doesn't see.
Correct.
But we don't always respect that access. And listen, here's the thing too. Look how efficient she is. I knew the time frame. And like clockwork, like my text message came on. Listen, I was like halfway to sleep. One I was like, whoa.
You're so petty.
We got action. You know? We got action.
But look, once I figured out what I needed to do, I had to update everybody.
Right.
Because I was quiet from everybody. Literally. Like, okay, so a lot of people know this, but since y'all are my extended family, I will share a little tidbit about myself. Y'all greedy, though. I'm not telling y'all everything about my life. But I'm going to give y'all a little something.
A little taste.
So, we've talked about this before, and I do fast, and I do fast from social media, and I do food fast and liquid fast and whatever. But whenever I do, I get quiet. What I know about me once I started building my relationship with God is that I have to get quiet to be able to hear God and to be able to process and problem solve. I didn't realize that that's what made me anxious. That's what gave me anxiety, and that's what gave me panic, because I would be trying to problem solve. And while I was trying to problem solve, I was also trying to continue with life. And I am not one of those. Like, there are some people who do it and they kill it.
Right.
Me, I'm one of those. Now, I can do it for somebody else's life. Like, I can be in the throes of it and be like, all right, this is what we're going to do. X, Y, and Z. Let's figure it out. I've helped many of my friends in the midst of it. When it comes to it being on my plate, whoa, child. So we're not going to walk and chew this gum at the same time. That's what we're not going to do.
Turn from one of those heavy-duty paper plates to that dollar store.
I told my best friend, we just had this conversation. She made a post on her Facebook page. I said, my paper plate is fragile. Don't you add another scoop of potato salad. Don't you add no spaghetti. I can't get no greens, not a piece of chicken, nothing. I have literally no more give in this plate. You add a grape on here, it's gonna cave everything in. Is gonna hit the floor. This not styrofoam. This one of those paper plates, and it's soaking through. Yeah, it's soft.
Like your hands under it, and you feel what's on top.
It's wet. Absolutely, it's soggy.
One of them.
My paper plate is almost in shambles. But I know if I just focus and walk to the table and sit down, I'm going to be fine. And that's what I had to learn about myself, is that you're not weak because you can't do it all at one time. You're not any less of a woman or this strong, independent woman thing that everybody has, just because you need to focus on what the task is at hand, so that you can cross all your T's and dot all your I's. Like, I needed to cross my T's and dot my I's, and I knew I couldn't do it and fake conversation with people because I was focused on something else. In my mind, 400 things are going through my head. Okay, what are we going to do? You're going to do this, you're going to do that. Okay, well, what if this doesn't? Because you got to have an A, B, C, and D. I say plan A, plan B, plan C, and a plan D. Like, I had to have, and I can't do that and kiki and ha ha ha.
And you can't exercise giving yourself grace when you're so in the mode of getting everything done.
Yes.
Because I think that's where we forget and we get zoned in, and it has the ability to take us out, because while we're so busy trying to do everything,
right,
anything that doesn't align while you're trying to do everything, can mentally wipe you out because you
take you out of this
because you forget to have enough patience
with yourself
to plan, but allow it to work out.
Absolutely.
And when you in it, and then you talk to other people and their opinions too, and then nope, not so effective.
Not gonna do it. Don't want to, and no. Anything else? No to that too. All right, keep it moving. Like my no is listen. This no game I got these days is strong. We'll talk about that on another episode too. There's so much to tell you guys about. There's so much going on.
So I am getting my 3-year-old ready to go to somebody's school next week, and it is exciting.
Listen, because he's a G. Mm-hmm. He's literally like the smartest person ever.
No, he's so smart, but so independent for 3. Like, there's so much stuff you can't do. Like, he can't go fix himself a sandwich, but he can definitely not talk to anybody probably in that classroom and mind his own business, where he probably would look at the teacher like, go over there with them? What? I don't want to do it. And I'm a little nervous. You know what I'm saying?
He's going to say, so here's the thing. No.
Not
going to do it. Good talk.
Yeah, I'm a little nervous. I'm excited. I really like the school. I'm super nervous. He is not fully potty trained. He can read a sight word book to you in a second. He can identify number words up to 20 at 3. You know what I'm saying? Like, he out here. That potty though, like,
but he might be on his sock. I'm just saying.
You know what I'm saying?
It depends on the day.
Minor thing to a boss. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, you better tell him. First of all, Google me. Look me up.
But I am excited for school to be back in. So, oh, man.
Let me tell you something. I was excited until I remembered that when my son is in school, I have to wake up at 6 a.m. But when my son is not in school, I wake up at 8:30 a.m.
Oh, that's the difference.
And let me tell you, these first 2 weeks.
Let me give you some perspective, though.
We're a doozy.
Let me give you some perspective. He's just keeping you on your own goal of waking up earlier, as you had been anticipating for yourself, for the effectiveness of you being productive and intentional in your day. So he just got you right back aligned.
First of all, close your mouth.
Okay, well, hey.
No, nobody over here asked for that. Nobody over here, and by nobody I mean me.
Right.
Absolutely nobody. Me. Okay.
The name tag says me.
The name tag says it. First of all. Second of all, I know that.
All right. Okay.
But third of all, I don't like it.
You have that right.
I don't like it. But let me tell you what else has been happening. My body was like, oh, we back on our 6 o'clock game? You gonna get woke up at 5:30 before the alarm goes off. The nerve! The nerve! Literally, I got 30 more of these. And my body was like, nah, fam, you don't need those. You don't need it.
Definitely not.
Rise and shine. Okay, here's the thing. She's still sleepy. No, not really. If you got up out of bed, you wouldn't be sleepy. But I don't want to. But now, we're going to make you have to pee.
Right.
And now we're up. Look at magically. 8:37 and we up. Look at you walking to the bathroom. I don't like any of you.
You're not a fan.
Fine. I don't like it.
So that, I mean, you know what, my 3-year-old is, he's always up before, like, he hasn't got the sleep in thing yet. Yeah. But, so that's never been a vacation. But it is going to be some adjusting and some things to figure out. And because I am learning where I have to let go, the amount of things that I should have together that I don't know, and I have to just be okay with not having it together. Like, people ask me questions like, so how's that going to work? Getting to work and doing, I don't know.
First of all,
we'll find out.
Mind your business and drink your water.
Listen, we will find out.
At the same time.
I don't know. We will find out.
Is this conversation because you're offering a service that I need to know about? Because if this is just to be inquisitive,
I don't have it. I don't got it. How else can I say it?
I don't got it.
No is no in multiple languages. I don't have it.
You have a good point. It is.
It is.
Most language knows me no.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that
it's very effective.
Yes.
You should understand me.
And that's where I said what I said comes from. Because I did.
That's been happening. So that's kind of been my focus of life, is getting back to school, geared up. This week I don't even know how to describe this. Unexpected is a word. An unexpected, like, delightful yet challenging encounter with my niece. So I have a niece that's going into high school, and I've always looked at her like she's me. Like, I didn't have her, but she's me. Like, for however this happened in life, like, slightly and looks in certain ways, she says things, and I'm like, yep, that's probably what it looked like when I was there.
You say, yep.
Yep, I get it. Seems like nobody else gets it in
but
the room.
But I see it.
I understand. And I found out that she has been having a hard time, like, adjusting, changes, just life. She's been having a hard time, and I happen to be in a situation that just casual conversation about high school and her feelings just turned into this outpour that was startling. Like, I've never been in a situation before where kind of like I gasped without gasping, or like, but that was a different type of emotional tough,
right,
to listen to. Her struggles, and mainly because I identified. I knew exactly what I was listening to, and I knew how similar it was, and it scared me a little bit. And it scared me, and then it also had me immediately like, I have this thing that I've felt that part of my struggles with my own mental health, my own figuring out myself, could serve in some purpose towards kids or youth, or wanting to help be a part of ways to give kids the opportunity to share their feelings or different things. And then I felt like right at that moment, God was like, so you thought it was going to look a certain way. Joke's on you.
Because your test is always part of your testimony, but you don't get to decide what it looks like.
Listen, yeah, sure that's what you thought. Oh, you thought it was like going to be a bunch of random youth that you didn't know that wouldn't make you cry on. Oh, you thought you were just gonna do. You saw this in a public speaking type of way, huh? You thought you were just gonna sit and then nah.
But you know, here's the thing. That could possibly be
maybe
true. Not this week, though.
Not this week.
Not this week.
No.
Maybe next week or next year. But this here August
today,
on this here today,
you gonna get started.
You gonna get that. You gonna get this work.
It's time to start.
Let's start today.
So I feel like, you know, those times you have those conversations with yourself of things you want to do or like goals, but you've pinpointed when it's gonna happen. Like,
correct.
When I move, when I get to this point, and then once I've launched that business, what I'm gonna come back to is getting to that bag. He was like, this week, player. I'm like, oh.
Well, let me pull my hair up and tighten up my belt.
Well,
today?
Can I grab a water bottle before I run or no?
He said, quickly. Hurry up.
So
we already in this.
So that made me, like I was expressing it sent me on a very reflective journey. And I spoke to Ariel and I was like, so like I did before around when I was like, so I guess we're gonna have to share a little more
today.
I guess we're gonna have to share a little more.
It seems as such. I understand. I understand. Ew.
So I felt like I wanted to kind of share why the conversation with her was so tough for me, and even in it being tough, and I recognize in myself in the past, it would have been tough in a way like I would have had to sit down. And give or take what sitting down would have done with processing would have been a raffle, because it could have sat down and dwelled, or sat down and shut down.
Correct.
But I had to kind of keep going and recognize the importance it was ringing out to me, and why it was, affecting me the way it was. So I wanted to share my journey with my own battles and struggles and struggling with myself, and I wanted to let you guys in and be a little transparent on my journey.
Ooh. I'm booing transparency, because transparency is something. Here's the thing about transparency. It is powerful. Mm-hmm. But not only is it powerful, it is scary as ever. But necessary.
Right.
And unfortunately, the only way to figure out how scary or traumatic it's going to be is to do it.
Right.
So you got to walk through it.
Right.
So here's the walking through part to when I was transparent, or whenever I'm transparent, afterwards, I literally feel so dope, because it's kind of, you know what it is? Remember on 8 Mile when Eminem pretty much put all his business out there?
Yep.
And then he was like, all right, so now what?
What you gonna do now?
What you gonna do now?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're transparent and you put it out there, literally there's no punch that can hurt you.
Right.
There's nothing that anybody or anything can do, because you're kind of like, yeah, I already did that. So
right.
Now what? Oh, yeah, I did that too. Oh, that was last week. You're late. I did that last week.
Right.
It's such a freeing thing. It's actually in it or walking up to it that is scary. But once you've done it,
right,
and you take that
deep
breath, and it's out there, you feel like I should have been did that.
Right.
I could have been done that. And it feels so freeing and refreshing that's when you recognize how necessary that it was, and that the fear that you have, because it's literally a fear of rejection, or a fear of an attack, of a person attacking
or shame, your own shame.
And listen, and let's put it in sequence. Shame would be number one. Right. Shame, and then fear.
Right.
Like, and
in a salad together.
With croutons and shredded cheese and a boiled egg, like all the deliciousness that you could think of in that thing. And you looking at it like, I don't want to do
it. Somebody's like, it's good for you.
Here's the thing. I don't want it.
So is a granola bar. I opt out. I don't want to do it.
I'm going to say no thank you with a smile.
So my disclaimer in sharing the things I'm going to share about myself is that this is my journey. This is my view. This is my view of things and contributions that contributed to my struggles. And my intention in sharing something so close to my chest is for opening a door in a way that I think sometimes people struggle to identify when they're struggling, and to be able to take my own observations. So I don't have planned out exactly all that I'm going to say and share. We're going to take this journey. But I do know my plan is to be very honest and transparent, and to hopefully effectively convey myself and get to the end without some tears. That's going to be great. So if I can do that.
If I see it happening, I'll crack a joke. Here's the other thing. There are people that are listening who have children.
Yes.
And if you have children and you've never been in the space that Tiffani is going to so candidly express, this will be something that you can use to look at as, and I don't want to say a template, but as a cheat sheet that may or may not help you in your situation, but at least you have the cheat sheet in your pocket. It's kind of like when a teacher gives a test and you like, maybe this is the answers to the test, or maybe they changed the test. I don't know, but at least I got it in my pocket just in case. Put this in your pocket so that if you see anything similar and you can't put your finger on it because this is not your life. Right. This is not what you've... Right. I've never experienced anything like this. And just because you haven't experienced it doesn't give you the right to disqualify it for someone else, right. i.e. your kid, your niece, your right. cousin, your sister, whoever. And you can't look at it and not... Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Right. So put it in your pocket for later, and take it for what it is. It's just a little cheat sheet, a little nugget. Put it in your pocket. Take that gem with you. Right.
So I would say, my family dynamics. I grew up, and I am. Let me do the quick math. 14 and 11 years younger than my older brother and sister. So kind of growing up in my household, it felt like I was the only child, even though I wasn't the only child.
No, that's right.
So I kind of just felt like my siblings were kind of like visiting, though they were my siblings there. But it's...
Oh, hey, those people back.
Oh, yeah, they down there doing that. I did not feel the warmest from my sister. That energy was always seemingly a little cold. Mm-hmm. And my brother, I felt tolerated. Kind of like I could go in your room. I could sit there silently while you play the video game. Not that I really felt a lot warmer, but I think I sought that relationship in a different way with my brother too. And I think it was because it's where I had the most access outside of, the relationship with my mom. And as I know, but so because of that, I always kind of felt like outside looking in that I just, I felt like the black sheep without having to be the black sheep. Like I felt like, I don't really get why this looks this way. Mm-hmm. I always had questions. I always wanted to know why something was looking the way it was or what was going on. I was always inquisitive and not always necessarily asking, but always inquisitive. And I think that dynamics kind of what I got when I felt I would question things or wondered certain things. So I grew up, and in my house, for the most time growing up, I never saw my mom and dad in the same room together. My dad would be in the basement and my mom would be upstairs, and that's kind of like blatant. Mm-hmm. You see that? Right. But it was never discussed. Right. So it's like, what's going on? But it seemed like don't nobody want to talk about this. So I guess I am not supposed to have a question. Right. I don't know. And I think that started to imprint how I felt I could deal with questions being answered, or, how I could perceive things, or what could happen, or how I could look at it. And when I began having those issues, those social issues at school, like this person teased me or this would happen, and my mom would be the person I would go to, she always had this very religious, like, how how can you believe in God and give this little girl that much power? And I'm like, I mean, in hindsight, however, she like 30 pounds bigger than me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
this fool said, however.
I'm just saying. It's other factors to consider why this is a little difficult for me, man.
So, are we running up or no?
Tell me. Give me a couple more notes in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, should I run or should I jab and pray later? Like, tell me how to handle this. What? I don't know. What?
I'm all about the pray later.
And I got to the point where I know I very early learned to kind of segregate myself. And I started functioning in a way where kind of like, okay, well, this is how comfortable I could be with family. And this is how comfortable I could be with friends. And this is how comfortable I could be with my, like, real friends. And then this is, like, the in-between tier. And then these are the, like, I started to, like, navigate myself to kind of not want to be problematic.
Right.
I didn't want to
rock the boat, stir the pot.
Right. You know, you like encounter those friends that it's like you say how you feel about something and they kind of like, who thinks that? Okay, so don't come. Okay, so that's not a widely accepted view. Okay, so I gotta shift, keep that back, go over here with it. I don't really know why I always formatted into lack of confidence, because I don't think that, like, nothing besides feeling alone and like an only child would have, you know, attached to, I guess, any type of insecurity. And then I know I kind of remember one of the more traumatic things that happened when I was younger that I remember is that my mom and my dad both lost close siblings to them around the same time.
Okay.
And in this household that feelings were never talked about and you kind of couldn't talk about things, I saw them differently. And now I have my brother not in the house and my sister's not in the house. And my brother was kicked out of the house, which I had a certain resentment to my dad about that, because I was like, so the only person that kind of talked to me here, you wanted him to go?
Right.
Okay, cool. You just gotta be okay with that. Okay, cool. Great. And then I saw them lose sisters that were extremely close to them. And I had to experience in this house by myself of hearing my mom, like, sobbing in the bathtub.
Right.
But walking out in the face, and we kind of never talk about that.
But, so what age are you saying that
That's like 7th, 8th grade at that point.
Okay, so you're like 12, 13. Okay. So at the age of beginning to process and understand life.
Right.
Because my son's 13 and he over here processing life. So I'm understanding that at that age, you're looking at these things going, so we could talk about it, or I'm going to come up with my own.
Well, listen, either one. You're going to see it. Kind of put my pinky in the water, but we're figuring it out.
Right.
Or my dad would go to the garage a lot often, or times I go to the garage or go out and see what he was doing in the garage, because he was like out there for hours and he's wiping his face.
Right.
But we're not talking about that.
Right.
And for me, I had a whole different experience on that I didn't learn till later that was different, but I had a whole different experience at that age than my brother and sister had, because I experienced my mom and dad having really hostile arguments. And I remember being older and they were like, Mom and Dad didn't argue. And I was like, who
house was you in?
Oh, yeah, you weren't there. You know? And I think that part gets lost, and sometimes it kind of just gets faulted, or especially if you're an older sibling. You very easily can identify the parenting differences that your parents do to the younger siblings, but you're missing the life changes that they encountered.
Right.
For why they're the different version of themselves.
Right.
I mean, and it's kind of like noted, but you're kind of more like, you should be doing this, baby girl. When they lost that sister, they were not the same person no more.
Right.
They're not they patience level is
depleted.
Ain't the same.
Right.
It's certain things that we just don't have time for.
Right.
But I had seizures when I was younger, and I know around that time I started writing a lot, and I began to write because I spent so much time with myself. That was kind of my activity. So I would like write poems, or I would kind of write stories where I felt like I could kind of create a different environment in what I wrote about. Like I tell my kids now, like I used to play board games like with myself. I know that's probably like lame, but like
I just want to know, how does that work? You switched positions? Mm-hmm. So you was the boot and you was the car?
Absolutely. And I'm like, you got this much money, and I was fairly like, it's your problem. What did you buy this? Let's be fair. And then I was like, me A1, not me B. That's how it worked. I mean, we didn't have tablets. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, that is interesting. Like, I guess, my son is the only child. Mm-hmm. So I guess he also had to figure out what to do. And I've never seen him playing a board game by himself. But I guess
he can play a video game by himself, see? And I don't.
Right.
And I didn't. I had video games too, but like
even when he was younger, though, I don't know what he did to entertain himself. Mm-hmm.
Stuff like
before the games,
right? But it was things that like it was always a certain part of me that I felt like I had to kind of like find my space in this space that never felt like my space, because I always felt off, or I always felt me having questions, or what I would get back was wrong. I deemed it as wrong, like
right,
or that I'm the weird one here. I'm off because I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Right.
Nobody else is trying to figure out something. So I guess it's just me.
Just me.
So let me just go over here with me, because clearly I'm the one off here.
It's me.
Right. After my brother was out of that, I want to say that might have been around like 6th grade. I had taken I was taking medicine for being on seizures, and they switched it to this XL version, which was like an elapsed time frame, which means when you took it, it didn't release right away. It would release later.
Okay, it would release into your stream later.
Later, right?
Okay.
But I started having issues with that, and that part too used to make me feel insecure or weird, because I knew I couldn't have caffeine like that because I had seizures. So I had to watch caffeine or.
Caffeine is tied to that?
It's a trigger.
Oh, okay.
Caffeine is a trigger.
Which is interesting because you drink coffee a lot.
Oh, man.
You lucky you done.
I'm emancipated.
Because you'd be in that upper room.
Listen.
If they said it's a trigger and you over here drinking.
Y'all gonna have to find me. Well, they got Caffeine Free Pop. You're gonna have to find me some Caffeine Free coffee. And that's what you're gonna have to figure out.
Really?
They do have caffeine. Actually, there's a lot of sodas that are caffeine free, which you find out. Which is also a reason I think why I prefer light pops, because they're usually safer than the darker pops. And that's what I learned. Like, I could do a 7-Up all the time. So
ginger ale, orange crush.
Run it.
Give it to me.
Run me a ginger ale. Couldn't get on the roller coasters. Couldn't be in the heat too long.
Okay.
Overheating would cause a trigger. But for the most part, and for anybody who has a seizure or have ever had seizures or seen it, I don't know what my trigger is. It was never that distinctive for me.
Right.
I just began to while getting older, recognize that when it was about to happen.
Okay.
And what feelings I would start to feel like. Yeah, this felt like something I felt before, and it was like a quick shutdown. I would kind of just try to make sure I was sitting down somewhere or would walk to a certain point and sit down. But anyway, I had this medicine that started having this reaction. And as I started getting older to get more independent, I started not taking my medicine the way, because that was part of me wanting to feel normal. So I wanted to know that I didn't have to take it to be normal. So I wouldn't take it on every time I was supposed to. And I would keep it. I would harbor it. And then I would think about it and be like, should I have taken it? Okay, I'm going to take it again for the next dose. But the problem is when it switched, now it was compounding.
Right.
And elapsing together, which was having adverse reactions because a big release that's happening at a different point because it's delayed.
Right.
I knew that I was not taking the medicine the way I was supposed to.
Okay.
But I wasn't necessarily mistaking it as a intent to hurt myself.
Okay.
But I did know that I was mistaking it, and it was dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be dangerous. I knew that. And I think once I started seeing what it could do, then it made me feel like I had some control.
Control is a hell of a drug.
And then I was like, okay. And in going through the growing cycles and changes and things that were happening, I ended up, I think the week before my 8th grade graduation, the week around in, I ended up taking like 2 days worth of pill in one day.
On purpose.
On purpose.
Knowing what the outcome would be.
But not knowing what it really could be. Just like, why not?
Okay, but there had to be something in you that said, this can go bad.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But you were okay
with it going bad.
With it going bad.
Yes. I knew that I was okay with it going bad, but not necessarily equating that as I'm trying to hurt myself.
Okay.
Feeling like it wouldn't matter if it went bad. If it went bad, then it's supposed to go bad.
But it's supposed to go bad because you're causing it to go bad.
But that's the way I saw it, was like, I think more control focus was the way I was thinking. Like I said, when I saw that my actions can cause this reaction, and okay, maybe it was that I was a little sick this before, a little loopy. My mind was like, but then it was like, a part of it was like, well, you weren't supposed to not be taking it too. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And then it was like, well, if it's bad, if it's going to be bad, then I guess to figure out. And I think that was just kind of a certain level of loneliness at that time.
Well, how old were you at this time?
This is 8th grade.
This is when you're 13.
Yeah.
So at 13, you had such a strong sense of loneliness that you were willing to take the chance of whatever would happen.
Whatever was going to happen.
Now, had you told anyone that you felt this way? Had you came off? You know how you sometimes are subtly...
No, because I think the way the dynamics was, like I said, I think I was experiencing this different version of my parents, too, that I was as much of whatever a loner would have looked like as I had been. You know, I was writing. I don't think I was writing anymore. I think I was more aggressive in my expression. I think that's where me and my mother started to have more conflicts, or, she would advise me, and I think that's where the dialogue of not being understood started around then.
Around that time.
Yeah. Or, you know, you don't understand what I'm trying to say to you, or you don't understand. And I didn't at that time know how to articulate all of what was bothering me, of why it was bothering me and felt understood, the underlining part, but I definitely know those type of dialogues between us started around that time, and nobody would have known.
Okay.
Like, even the people that were my friends at school, like, they would have never known. But that's also because I never wanted to really have to talk about me having seizures, because I never wanted to get teased about it. And I would see how other kids would get teased if they had any type of issues or, you know, different things. And I just would be hoping I never had a seizure at school. You know what I'm saying? So I never was sharing that part of myself. Those two close friends I had in grade school, they would know, because I spent the night at my friend's house, and her mom makes sure that I take the medicine and things like that. But besides that, I would never be talking about anything about me having seizures or taking medicine with anybody. So me taking them or not taking would never been a dialogue with anybody.
Okay.
And so when I did my 8th grade dance, I remember saying I felt tired and wanted to nap before my mom took me to the beauty shop. I got my hair done. I went to sleep. So I thought I went to sleep. And she painted my nails while I was asleep. And then she went to wake me up for the dance, and I didn't wake up.
Okay, so when you said you were tired, this was after you had taken the pills?
Yeah, but it had been like, not that day or that day before. It had been like a day or two before that.
So you took the pills a day or two before the dance?
Right.
And you didn't tell anybody that you had did it?
Mm-mm.
And then your mom tried to wake you up, and she could, and you were not responsive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I just remember waking up in the hospital, hearing them say to her, she almost didn't make it.
That's how you woke up?
Yes, I heard. Like, I could hear, but
you hadn't completely came
right.
Out of it. Got it.
Right,
okay.
Right. And then I woke up. Then I felt the catheter, and I was like, things are happening.
Hey, a catheter will do that.
Woo. First time, I was like, whoa, this is different. Let me tell you. And I ended up missing my 8th grade graduation, too.
Because of it?
Yes.
Okay.
But I still never shared that journey of, you know.
But when you say you never shared it, you mean with other people? Or did you never tell anybody that you took all these pills? Or did they just figure it out?
No, they didn't figure it out.
But you knew?
Mm-hmm.
And what did the doctors assume it was?
Because even before I had done the skipping, because the medicine I had before, I would skip and take another dose, or, you know, it would be advised, okay, she missed that one. It just didn't work the same with this new medicine. So doing what I had normally done was different with this medicine.
Okay.
So then I would never be necessarily skipping a whole day and making up. I might skip a dosage and come back and make it up. But that wasn't effective, even just the regular doses. So I remember even trying that. They were like, okay, don't do skips, and we don't do no skips, and we logged, and it was still kind of making me feel some way, just period, this elapsed version of this medicine. So I think it was just linked to that medicine not being effective for me.
Okay.
At that time, I didn't consider that me trying to hurt myself.
Because of how it looked in your head?
Yeah. Like, I feel like I was having a lot of normal, situational, you know, maybe not understanding yourself, figuring out things that were normal. But I think for me, it was that I didn't know the gauge of how normal or not normal those type of thoughts were, of what I was playing with the pills. Like, oh, if I do this, I didn't know the scale of that because I had become so accustomed to not being able to share, as I told myself.
Yes.
That I never had anywhere to really bounce that off of because I was already anticipating that, well, I don't want to sound crazy. So.
Or the judgment.
So I'm just keep that. And the scale of knowing, hey, no, this is why that's not a good idea. And even, you know, in hindsight, I get the tools she was using that she had. And like I said, my mom would always have kind of like a religious approach to her advice. But at that age and lack of understanding of even that, it was like, you know, like I feel like an older Black woman, you say you feel lonely or you feel worthless, they're going to be like, it's nothing but the devil. In hindsight, yeah. But for me today, in practicality, it doesn't help me.
Yeah. And there's so many instances like that, especially when it comes to kids, because people, when they talk to kids, will say stuff like, you ain't even had real life stuff happen yet.
Right.
To downplay
or
where
you'll
they are.
Understand later.
Like, I can't, your life is not that tough. You know, I got bills and I got this and I got that going on. And that could be true, Sharon, at the age of 42. But me at 12, right now,
this is my verse.
This is real.
Right. And I think for me, what I started to learn is that when I did feel like I would share my feelings, especially with my mom, they would kind of get flipped on me. If I would say, hey, I feel like this, or these moments make me feel this way, I would get things back at times like, well, if you think I've done nothing but try to be the best mom I could. If I'm not being the best mom, and I'm like, wait, what did I just say that equated to that?
I don't know, but they must read from the same handbook.
It's a thing.
It's a thing with moms, apparently.
And so that would, like, no, that's definitely not what I'm saying. Let me not say anything that's saying that I didn't think I was saying.
For sure.
So I'm not going to say.
Nothing.
I can't.
I'm not going to say nothing.
Can't really get into that bag with you. But at that time, honestly, truthfully, genuinely, she would have been the closest person I had to think I could share my feelings with.
Right.
To only kind of know that didn't work there.
Correct.
I always felt a certain level of unconditional love with my dad, but I spent most of that time where that just wasn't the relationship or the dynamics to talk in that type of way.
Meaning you talk to him about stuff, but not that.
Yeah, we talk about music or like, you know.
Would you say you talked about more fluff stuff with
him?
For
sure. For sure. But I always felt like he shared with me.
Okay.
In a real way. Like,
but if you kept yourself guarded.
Right. Now, because if she made him mad, we was going to have a conversation about it. That was going to be a good car ride.
You said it's going to be a good car ride.
Let me tell you something about that husband in there. I'll be like, whoo, daddy. What you doing?
You said, I'm here for it. Let me turn the radio down.
This was pre-Love and Hip Hop. I was here. What?
Give me all the train.
So how you feel about it? What did it make you feel like?
So what did you say?
Right.
And then she said, what? The nerve.
Right. Yeah, we had great conversations. But I recognize now that to be that age and kind of what I was feeling at that time, it was more innocent. Like, I would have never called that a suicide attempt, but I know how it was.
And it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, but I would have not called it that then.
Okay.
But I recognize now that that's exactly what it was. Because I didn't do it like cause and effect. Like, you're going to do this and then you're not going to wake up. That wasn't my mind.
Correct.
But what my mind was that I didn't think I mattered. That whatever could happen was okay.
Even if that
was an option. Yes.
That is exactly what that is.
Exactly.
And I think you being able to now express it that way, a lot of people need to understand that if their kids are like, if it happens, it happens. But I mean, that's not what I'm aiming for. That's still the same thing. It's the same
and I
thing.
think a lot of times, because it's a kid, and maybe if you have a vocal kid, when you're hearing stuff like, oh, if I was this person, or I just do everything wrong, or those type of things, and how they can get minimized as dramatics or whatever, like,
attention seeking.
Right. You have to still know that it takes a certain level of how you view yourself that you make that fact. And sometimes maybe it didn't start as fact, but the repetitiveness of you expressing it and getting it overlooked, dismissed, and minimized makes it become fact to you. Well,
right.
Like, well, yeah, I guess it really don't matter. Like, it really wouldn't matter. Not that you were maybe starting with that feeling, seeking to harm yourself,
right?
But just feeling so undervalued that when you don't have a certain support system of that, you start troubleshooting your own way of figuring out what that means to be holding that type of feeling.
Listen, and whenever you start trying to figure it out on your own,
it's terrible.
Oh, child. Child. Up until any age.
Right.
If you don't have the right tools.
And then I think I got to went to college, and my dance team in college helped a lot as a escape. And I think it's why it's severed, because I kind of started with this basis of friends who were close friends, and I think my activeness in my dance team that a lot of us experience caused us to lose and shift with a lot of relationships, because we were pouring so much into this, into the time and the attention that it was getting. It was kind of like consuming everything. But it also was an escape. So when there were real tough moments for me to have to deal with, what I started learning as I got older, when I struggled to know what to do when I couldn't not face certain feelings. Like when now I have to deal with this, it was a meltdown because
you hadn't developed the tools that you needed to be able to.
just to not talk about it.
Right.
But then it's kind of like, this is kind of heavy. I kind of don't know what else to do. And I don't want to really be vulnerable and talk about it, but it's here. I don't know what to do.
So you opted to not talk about it with your friends.
For the most part.
That was what you were used to.
For the most part. Okay. What I started doing in college, different relationships were forming, because now, I'm getting to the ideas of different type of boyfriends, or, male interests, or the conversations about sex and different things like that, or liquor.
And your regular friends too.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but you're exploring different things that's on my mind.
Right.
So then I'm learning different things I could be comfortable enough. Like, maybe this has been my friend longer, but when I talk to her about my feelings about sex, like, she kind of reacts kind of like a prude, and I don't feel like I could really be candid with her.
That comfortableness isn't
so
there.
Let me take that away. But then here I go and I meet this person, and there's no judgment there if I say my feelings. And I started kind of trying to navigate which was that maybe it wasn't that I wasn't okay, and that previous feeling of, well, maybe it's something wrong with you. It was like, okay, maybe it's not that it's something wrong with me. It's just I don't fit in every room, and I got to find which rooms are okay. Right. And so that became the like exploration until I got in a relationship with who became my daughter's father. And I think that was such a I don't know how to describe it, but I knew that wasn't a good decision from the beginning. And it kind of, to me, in talking about it this way right now, it was as cognitive of a bad decision as taking those pills.
This could be good, it could be bad. Yeah.
Let's see. And literally, and that
the way I function my entire life.
But for me, that was the only space I had control. That it was still a control thing. I get to choose this. I get to. I kind of would free fall. Like, I don't have a parachute. I could land in that water. I could hit that rock. I'm gonna jump. But I get to jump. That was the control.
Yeah.
I get to jump, though.
But in reality, with you saying that, that's how a lot of people are, even when it comes to actually deciding about suicide. Mm-hmm. It's that control.
Absolutely.
Whether it's I jump off a bridge, or I take these pills, Absolutely. Or I hang myself, or I slip my wrist, whatever the reason is, I decided it.
Because I can't maybe always control why I feel the way I feel about things.
And the people around me and what they do.
How they react.
How they treat me. But this,
I can control.
This I control.
And so I went through...
what age is this?
21.
When you met him. So this
20, like 19, 20, 21. That frame. I knew it wasn't a good decision. And when you kind of meet somebody that's like out of your league, like you kind of know, like when people say, I don't know if you heard, like, it's not a gangbang or anything, but I'm going to use this example. You know, like when people, like, you're kind of like, you're not street smart. Mm-hmm. When people make that type of statement. Yeah. I wasn't street smart. Okay. And so I felt like I took this spiraling journey that getting out of it, I was able to deal with a lot of stuff with myself because I was forcing this to try to work, that I had to, by getting out of it, look at some stuff about myself. But in it, I saw like a lot of the stuff I had to face with the way I handled things with that, similar to how I handle stuff with my family or friends, of like, let me figure what parts of me work here. Right. And I never had to deal with that per se in a relationship form, but that happened then, where it was like, okay, so if I do this, is okay. And I don't want to say that because I don't want to get that reaction. And I don't know how to navigate this. And then when you have someone that's exemplifying so much negativity, well, I'm avoiding that because I've been so used to trying to adjust myself for what's right, that I'm not really acknowledging what he's doing per se that's not right.
Just now, you just spoke a whole word to my soul.
This was the thing.
I had to take a swig of water on that one.
It's a thing.
Because listen,
it's a thing.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. And I know, so I was in a space where I felt, while trying to maintain the relationship I had with him and trying to still deal with that trigger from my mom of not feeling, just not wanting to disappoint her, or not even necessarily that I was always trying to not disappoint her, just like felt like I was gonna always get it wrong. Some even if I thought I was going right, if I didn't do it quite right, it was gonna be wrong. That I was faced in this position that I was really depressed, and while being with him, I isolated myself. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to my friends. I made sure ringtones didn't go off so there would not be an issue. Just listen.
Damage control.
Yeah, I just tried.
Because you felt like if you could control that part,
then me and him would be okay if I can.
And then it wouldn't flag or be a trigger for any of the things that you felt once, I'm air quoting, you messed up.
Right. I just didn't want to mess up.
Just don't speak to my soul.
Yeah, I don't want to mess up. So let me do everything I could. And then finding out that still didn't work. And I still upset.
But the crazy part is it like you said, it transferred over from your family.
Right.
That let me not mess up. And in that aspect, we are very similar. I've always done whatever my family wanted me to do. My brother, my dad, my sister's younger than me. So not so much my sister, but my brother and my dad, how they wanted me to function and who they thought I was supposed to be and how I was supposed to behave, began to be my identity. Right. So even when it wasn't my identity, it was my identity.
Because you felt you had to try to keep up with it.
And then one of the books that I talked about on here was Boundaries. And I was recently listening to the audiobook, and there was this one part where he was given an example of how a woman was so concerned about the disappointed silence. And that's what he calls it. He says that the lady in the session that he was having with her said that she could deal with a lot of things. What she could not deal with was the disappointed silence that her mother gave her when she did not do something that her mother wanted her to do or felt was a better decision than what she had chose to do. And it was 45 seconds of silence that in that 45 seconds you fill in the blank yourself. You can see her over there with the sad face. You can see her over there with the disappointment or the face of you let me down again. And to avoid that, you allow, because this is definitely a form of manipulation, you allow that manipulation to alter what you know, what you wanted to say, how you wanted to stand in that space. You change your dialogue, you change your response, you start juggling things like a circus act to be able to appease the person who you don't want to get the disappointed silence from. Whether it's a parent or it's a significant other. And children receive that the most. And sometimes it's not just the disappointed silence. Sometimes it's the disappointed look that you give your kid. And then the verbiage that comes behind it. Or the disappointed silence. And when you're dealing with your kid and you give them that as a trigger as they become older, like in your situation, it manifested itself in you and then grew with you. And then rolled into your relationship.
It kind of rolled into my decision making. Yeah. Because like even in school, I found myself in a situation where I wasn't doing that great, but I so did not want to go have the conversation that I'm not doing great.
Right.
That I get to the point where I'm about to get kicked out because you wasn't doing great.
Right.
But had I had a conversation and talked about it,
probably could have picked that up.
Probably could have changed how that went. But I just didn't want what could come from that. Because
that disappointed silence.
Yeah. And like to what you said, I think for mine, I always associated the issue came when I expressed feelings. More so even than what I do. Hey, I'm trying to say this is how I felt about that. And it was kind of like, I don't get why that's what you feel. So, yeah, I don't got nothing to say about that. And when you kind of been working up this courage to even express that, and then you get that, it's like, I could have kept that to myself. I didn't. Can we rewind? I don't want to give it. Let me take that back. I don't like it. And even in relationships, is why I used to notoriously be I was the I'm going to text you a paragraph girl. Because I can't deal with saying that. Like, we can have the conversation after I get it all out in that text message. But if that's my first time saying it, and then you like, I got nothing. Oh, that was heavy. I can't do that.
That Band-Aid for you, ripping it off was,
Okay. But the problem is, I think I had to deal with it, even though it created hostility between my mom and me. And that's where that, definitely in high school, you don't understand, but I then just didn't want to feel that.
Right.
And so when I got in the relationship form of that feeling, it would produce panic. If he wasn't answering the phone, I was coming to his house. We have to talk. Like, no. Oh, you're not answering. Okay, so I'm about to go buy a card. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to, let me do my hair. Let me look right. I got to fix this.
Yeah.
And he could be rude, vindictive, mean, but I would take it as a step further than that silence.
Yes.
So if he
absolutely, it
didn't matter. He could be like, "What? What do you want? Whew, girl, because let me tell you, about an hour ago, I wasn't getting nothing.
But we equate
that as something.
That is, well, okay. Well, at least we're taking a step in a better direction. Because you take, and I see my son do that to me sometimes when he thinks I'm upset with him. He'll put a tester question out there.
Hey.
Mom, can I get some water? What?
When do you ask me?
Have you ever had to ask? He's like, Mom, can I use toilet tissue when I go to the bathroom? I'm like, you know what? But that's what kids do to fill out testers and put out fillers to see if, are we okay?
Are we okay? Without knowing that you can say, are we okay? And a lot of the times I feel like parents don't do the best job of aiding when you see that's what's happening. Right. We don't always do the best job of saying that maybe I need to help that language barrier of what they don't know what to say now. Right. Hey, you could you could ask me if I'm upset. Or I'm not upset because I know that's what you're trying to relate to.
Because you're my kid and I know you.
And I know. So let's have that honest conversation, or bridging that gap. But for me, I just didn't feel my feelings had a space, period. Right. And conflicted to where I was with feeling like I wasn't hitting the mark with him. I wasn't hitting the mark with my mom. Mm-hmm. I was tired and I didn't want to be here. And I was overwhelmed.
And this is still at 21?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was overwhelmed. And I was like, and I felt that space, and I'm gonna be honest, the truth was like I felt tired of not being able to talk about how I felt. Okay. I felt tired of holding everything in. I felt tired of going into certain rooms, and I felt tired of the double dutch of the I don't know what works. Clearly I'm the common denominator that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm listen, I've given it what I got. Like, I don't know. And this came after a very explosive argument with him. It came after talking to my mom a couple days ago, and understandably so, she wasn't in agreement with this relationship, right. And as well as like decisions with school and stuff, and I just didn't want to do it. And he was visiting me at school. He was staying with me, and I didn't say anything to him because we had been into it, and he had left, and I was crying. I was in the bathtub, and I was crying, and I decided to take an entire I took entire thing of Tylenol and drank vodka straight
with the
pills.
No. But yes, with the pills, but with the hopes that it would
take
you out.
That was
not. So it had shifted from if it happens, it happens. It has shifted from that
Please.
to I want that to happen.
I was praying. I remember praying that I just didn't want to feel what I was feeling. Like, I was tired of feeling so worthless. I'm tired of being the mess up. I am tired of not figuring it out. I'm tired of not getting it right. I'm tired. That's what I know I felt. And I was literally praying like, please, I want to stop this. Please, just let me stop. I just want to stop. Just please.
So after you took the pills, what was... Because before you took the pills, this was your thought. Please. After you took the pill, what was your thought?
This is what's about to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen like right away. Mm-hmm. But it was like mentally I felt like I can't turn back now. Like this is...
here.
Yeah, this is like the countdown, I guess. This is what's going to happen.
And there was no regret after. You still...
No, like some probably like, oh, let me try to throw it up or... Mm-hmm. No. Mm-hmm. Mm-mm.
Okay.
It was a piece. Like, it was a piece like, I don't know how this is going to work, but
But if it works how I think it's going to work, then I should be good.
Yeah. I didn't really even think of what the avert to it not working was. Like, okay. I didn't even think about being sick or nothing. Like, I just was. And so when I started feeling sick, I was like, it's working.
And you were still okay with it?
I couldn't say nothing. But he had come back.
To where you were?
Right. Because we had an argument, and then he left, and he was going to go back home. And then I ended up talking to him, and he came back. And that's where I felt some way, because I knew I was in his face, and he didn't have no clue that this had happened. So I was kind of like saying I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good. And I felt like I was sweating, felt terrible. I remember, because he asked my roommates to go get me like ginger ale and cold medicine. And then I felt bad because I saw him trying to care for me. And so I felt like I had to tell him.
So it was instant regret. Once he was in your face.
Yeah.
Once you saw some type of care. And isn't it interesting how we literally feel worthless and bottom of the barrel. And one glimpse of care.
Right.
Or concern.
What it can do.
Literally is...
Because had I probably been alone, I don't even know if like my roommate was there or I would have felt as compelled. I think it was this person that I felt
compassion.
And this person that I felt so not enough for.
Right. Now making you feel like you were important
mattered.
And that you mattered just by saying go get her a ginger ale.
Yeah. Or he was like trying to care for me of sorts. And
right.
When I said it to him, I told him, like, I have to tell you something. Can't say nothing. I'm like, can you come here? And I told him I took these pills. And he, like, had a shocked face. He was like, what? And he said again, what? And then he said nothing. He left out. And he came back. He said, put your coat on. Because he had called a cab to go to the hospital.
Okay.
Like, put your coat on. You know what? Put your coat on. Said nothing else. And then we got there to the hospital, and I think I began to say, they say, why are you here? And I was like, I've been throwing up something. And he looked at me like, why are you here?
That was that shame.
Right. And then I was I told them I took the pills. And they rushed me. And I think the more of all of it, because I've struggled with my relationship with my brother for so long that's another can. Hours after my mom and my brother were in the hospital room. And I think that blew my mind more than anything. I was blown.
Because you thought that it was just...
Because I would have never thought in a state of emergency that my brother would have anything to do with being there. So I was confused.
Because he was showing care, and in your mind, you don't care, so I don't know what
is happening right now. Yeah, I felt like I was in a Twilight Zone.
Right.
It almost was like, so it has to be this
for you to get
care?
For you to get up and come over here?
Oh, jeez. Wow.
Now, here's the thing. What I have heard before is that some people would take when a person does do something like that as just attention seeking.
Yes.
And then when you said just now, oh, so it had to be this to get you here. Mm-hmm. You ever hear the chicks that are, dude won't answer her phone calls and shit?
Right.
I was in a car accident. She really wasn't in a car accident.
Lies.
She's lying. Oh, it's
the same people like who lie to say they're pregnant when they're not pregnant.
And they're really not. Yeah. It's for the attention seeking or the small dose of concern that comes for, that temporary relief that comes in that moment. People would say that's why. That it was for attention, maybe not from your brother, maybe from your ex, that you did it for his attention. Right. Not because you were in a space that warranted in your brain that response.
I think after the situation in 8th grade, I always knew that I had the capability to do that. So there were always other times.
The capability to do what?
To harm myself.
Okay.
I could do things that would affect my well-being. Right. So it definitely wasn't the first time that I felt, conflicted or overwhelmed or maybe even thought, I don't want to be here. And I definitely can identify with how deeply rooted it is. If maybe you're not necessarily thinking I'm going to hurt myself, but if you're dealing with yourself, that had been a buildup for some time. That necessarily didn't convert over to let me go do something. Can I say that I had random thoughts of what I could do, I guess? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Enough that said when something happened in this moment, you're going to go do that? No. And probably had I felt some more comfort to talk about what I was struggling with, I probably could have been put in a situation for counseling, for some type of support to it, but I had just built up that I couldn't express it.
So for people who are concerned about their daughters or their sons and nieces and nephews and sisters and brothers, what was something that you think, well, right now you just said if you had been shown some type of concern, did you need that open dialogue, or would them showing some form of concern had been enough?
I can't say that I wasn't shown concern. I think that me expressing concerns with myself or other things I was dealing with was disregarded. Okay. And it kind of got framed as you're a kid, it's going to be fine, you're fine.
Because that's usually people's, montage when it comes to kids. They literally, it's repeated over and over again. Well, you know what? Let me take that back. Not just kids, adults also. Talk about they definitely say this will pass. It's not forever. And as true as that statement is, in the moment, in the crux of it, when you're in it, you can't see past it.
I think there's a certain level of insensitivity to deeming someone attention seeking, because I think that it's equating that there's more awareness of that person's self than what they might even have. Okay. I think, like I said, I didn't think of myself trying to harm myself in 8th grade. That's not what I deemed those actions to be. Right. But I know how that could be simply said, 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah. If you were doing this and you knew this could happen, that's what you were trying to do. To me, it wasn't. Right. Sincerely, it really wasn't. I was not. But can I say that I felt like I didn't care if that happened? For sure. Is that in hindsight the same thing? Yes. But at that age and that time, you can't tell me I'm somewhere that
you didn't connect those
dots don't connect. Right. So the aid in the in-between to that, where that could make sense, or even me have to self-check that thought to say, hey, well, I guess I am kind of saying the same thing. Right. Never happened, because what I was giving out was being dismissed. Okay. when stuff was being said. So I go from that point to kind of learning from that point and kind of deciding that if nothing else that I took away, that I couldn't function bottling up the way I had been bottling up things. Right. I took that from that moment. You kind of see what this is, so you can't bottle up. But then being super conflicted because I still had to battle those silences and other things. Yes. To just have to face what I've been afraid of for this whole time because it wasn't good for me. And right. I can now see this isn't good for me because, okay, yeah, you things might have happened with him, things might have happened with your mom, but really you're struggling with your worth. Yes. That's what's happening here. Okay, so if you can identify that you keeping that to yourself, you're not even giving yourself a chance to have a support if you're not telling nobody what you're struggling with.
Would you say that when you did finally voice this, would you say that it was received how you thought it was going to be received, or was it received differently? Because you had it in your mind, I'm not going to tell anybody this and I'm not going to talk about these things because of how it's going to be received. Was that accurate or no?
I think my sister-in-law was a saving grace to the expectation that I didn't expect to be received so well. Okay. And being loved on the way she chose to made me feel so important that I had to deal with being vocal because she made such an open arm for it. Right. That I couldn't go after, and especially after that. Right. Oh, I wasn't going 24 hours and not talking to her. Oh, you not talking? Oh, she gonna pull up. Right. She'll be there. Right. You want some ice cream? Right. You want to go get some? I'll be back. I'll bring it. You don't want to go? Cool, I'll be back. I'm gonna go get some ice cream for us. It poured into me a way that made me feel so important to her. That she made literal that idea, call me if you need me, without me having to call. Right. If she could identify that I was struggling, she was showing up. And being loved that way while trying to deal with that was important for me to be able to deal with my part that I needed to do.
Okay. So, being where you were, do you feel that at that time, how you felt, how you were processing everything you were going through was not received as if it was a category F? Like some people are just like, so you dealing with a guy, it ain't going well. Right. Your relationship with your mom ain't the best.
Whoop-de-doo. Right.
I literally hear this every day. All my friends are going through this. You are no different. You're not nothing special. Why is it that you're processing this so differently? And you processing it, your decision was, let me drink this and take these pills. Do you feel like people came to you saying that wasn't an even exchange, it wasn't necessary?
I still think I was functioning in that segregation. So I wouldn't have had to have that conversation with a lot of people. Okay. Of what that was. For the people that I began to have that conversation with, I think that's the struggle period that you find yourself always having to prove. And a lot of times I couldn't dealing with myself and how okay I was with myself because I was trying to not look a certain way, more so than not. And that's before it having to be told what was happening or what was going on. I started learning after that point in dealing with myself that I had to be, it was tough to deal with myself, because I think people think you're more in control than you may be to what you're dealing with.
Right.
Like, I think it's a perception, like, oh, you're doing this because when you've built habits, or you haven't built habits, or you have poor habits, I think it's not always understood. And I think we live in this space where it gets very insensitive, that on the outside in, someone thinks that they can become authorities on how you should. See, it's a difference between an opinion, because everybody can have that. But when you start treating someone different, or functioning different, or being, giving them venom because you think they should do something different, that's where it becomes a problem. And from that point forward, when I became a mom, I feel like I made a decision, and then that I had to deal with how I handle things. That was a conversation I had to have with myself. I have to, because I take this role really seriously. So I'm not going to that space again.
Right.
Until I found myself post-child number 2. And I was like, so I know we had this conversation. We're not going to that place again. But this is tough.
It's looking very familiar over here.
And I like to call myself, I consider myself a suicide survivor. And for someone, and as I mentioned in another episode, when I experienced losing my cousin to suicide, when I experienced losing what I would consider my younger brother, my best friend's brother, to suicide, it was startling to me to be able to say, here this is live in person, and this is something you struggle with. And I walked around during that time with a lot of perceptions of, even in those relationships, I remember being really excited that my cousin was preparing to go to college, and I was really excited, like, oh, that's going to be so dope, and she's younger and she's going to be at the place and we can like connect, and always having this idea to reach out to my younger brother and like, oh man, I'm going to do these things, and having that robbed, it was so hard to deal with seeing that in that up close and personal. It was hard to, it kind of like lifted a Band-Aid off, a wound that was, healed, but I guess sensitive. It pulled a Band-Aid off of something that was super close to home that I had to deal with and address. And I remember having a conversation with my mom, like, I don't think you guys get how tough it is to not go into the space that I decided was a space before. Like, that's active work. I actively have to deal with myself a certain way. I actively have to deal with my emotions a certain way to not go to this space that I know isn't good for myself. So I have to face that. And then having to see suicide so close, and it probe these feelings that I have, I became obsessed when my cousin passed. I stalked her social media. I stalked her words. I spent hours just going through stuff like, what was she saying that was saying it? And she was saying it, and it was all there. And I feel so empathetic to this day and age and this youth, because I take even more critically what they express, because at the time that I decided this is how I felt and this is how I was going to deal with it, I didn't have as much access as these kids do to things.
Absolutely.
I didn't see as much even about suicide. Like, I knew it existed, but I wasn't.
It was definitely a hush-hush taboo type of thing.
Yeah.
It was like, you heard about Lisa's daughter, right?
Right.
And it was never, dang, I feel so sorry for that baby. What was she going through? Like, now, with all the different movements and the different studies and the different doctors and the different questions that everybody asks about everything, where it's not taboo, this is an ongoing dialogue that everybody feels like needs to happen, it's expressed, it's studied and researched and looked into, and there's a constant it's okay, you're not okay.
Yes.
But that's not what it was before.
No.
And I mean, because I've known with my job and with people that I've gone to school with and I've grown up with, people who have struggled with depression and suicide, and it's always the same. They always say they feel like they're alone, and a lot of times it's because the people that they have around them don't know how to function in their life that way.
Right.
One, shame because they're not expressing that they feel that way. But two, you hear a lot of people talk about suicide or people who aren't dealing well with whatever's going on in life, and you feel them being talked down about, and it doesn't make the conversation comfortable for you to have in that room.
Right.
You're kind of like, oh, so I see how they feel about it. I'm not going to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Because now I'm going to become part of that dialogue that they have of this person was just seeking attention. I've literally seen people say and heard people say, and when I say seen, I meant like on social media platforms, where people say if they wanted to commit suicide, they just do it. They wouldn't talk about it. And that's not a fact.
No.
Most people talk about it before they do it because they do want help. Because they don't know how to fix it. They're grasping for straws, and when they don't have anybody to, reach out to them, they're like, okay, well, I guess I am right. It would be easier if I wasn't here.
Like, we joke about it, and I do think there's a certain level of attention seeking that can come when people are choosing to not be authentic to what they feel.
Absolutely.
But I do think when we kind of joke and make fun of the idea of someone like crying on social media or
having a breakdown.
Yeah, or you put all your business out here on your status and said this and that. A lot of times we undervalue that them doing that was to not hold it in.
Correct.
And what it would have done if they kept it in. It's not that they were really looking for your like per se. Is that they could not keep that in their head.
And when it comes to children, because this is a social media era, when you see kids, there can be kids who are putting things out for attention. That is very true.
Right.
Just like there could be adults that put things out there for attention. But my theory is always this. Do you want to find out which one it is?
Right.
Because a lot of people, like me, I'd rather pour into you and it was just you seeking attention than for me to not pour into you. And then the next thing I see is everybody on your page saying, RIP, this can't be real.
Right.
I can't believe this is happening. Oh, you really did that. I wish you would have talked to me.
Yep.
And it's always an encore of shoulda, woulda, couldas.
Right.
But when the person was telling you that they're struggling.
Yep.
And everybody's telling you this too shall pass. Or they're telling you, girl, you just got to dig deeper. You got to push harder. And if that could be very true.
Right.
That does not take from the place that they're at. Especially at such young, confused ages, that what they're dealing with now sometimes can supersede what we were dealing with when we were younger, because of how heavy the world weighs on popularity and features and how you features, meaning like what your face looks like, which is why this plastic surgery is such a big thing, or if you're overweight,
right,
or if you're not wealthy and you can't afford the new J's, that type of idea that the world functions that way is so ingrained and drilled in the kids that are functioning now, that it's kind of like how you were saying you didn't know your worth, and your worth was being gauged differently than how these kids these days
right,
look at their worth. They're thinking if I don't have the right clothes, I'm not worthy. If they're thinking if I don't have the booty or the breast or the lips or the long hair or the eyelashes.
I think, one thing I heard in having the conversations I've been having with my niece, I'm able to hear some of the things that is being advised and said to her, and why she's still struggling, because it's kind of like, well, nobody has themselves all figured out at this point. True enough. But don't ignore what she's saying, where she is.
Absolutely.
Where she's saying she is, or that this era of figuring it out is a little tougher for her than maybe what somebody else is carrying. And that's okay. And I think a lot of times, and what I had to learn to even advise and give support to her, and I recognize for myself, is that it took a journey to recognize that a lot of times when you are really depressed and sad, it becomes this fleeing chase to not be where you are.
Yeah.
You just don't want to. You don't want to hold it. You don't want to deal with it. And, if you listen to stuff I share about having to change shifts in my friends and different things, I went through, when going through a lot of these tough spaces after being a mom, I went through all these things of just trying to not make it look like I'm struggling, that I was able to still be the same type of friend, and you could still call me and vent to me. Even though I had other stuff going on, I didn't want to not be okay, or give off what could look like not being okay, or get the judgment of, well, she shouldn't have did this, or if she didn't do this, then she wouldn't be feeling this. And you know what? I want to be able to still show up
right
in the rooms that I'm supposed to show up in. And I recognize that this is literally in these past 3 years of a journey, that the goal isn't to just not feel what you feel. It's to not let what you feel overpower you to where you cannot function and other capabilities and access, where you can feel that and not shut down.
Right.
You can pause but not give up. You can, and you hear those type of statements, but when you're in it and you're not seeing the perspective, and you're not really getting that support to know how to give yourself grace, to know how to forgive yourself,
right,
and not giving the action, you're just kind of being told, it's going to be over. I might know. It's kind of like when you're in a bad relationship. You kind of know that but you still not really seeing the steps of just separating from it.
Yeah.
So when I'm here, and I know I'm not going to stay here, but I don't really know what it looks like to get to the next stage.
Right.
I just know I'm not here, and I don't want to be here. When I was going through, I had to battle with the perception that was being given to me about myself as running, not trying to deal with stuff, versus when it became intentional and I need to get quiet.
Yes.
And deal with me.
Yes.
And not wanting people to take me dealing with me personal, and battling between, what energy to give, and having to be okay that they're going to think it is this, and I guess got to be okay with that, right, even though that's not what it is. And before Ariel and I, when we talk about in that first episode of this podcast where I was literally not getting out of bed. I was not getting out of bed. To get out of bed and change my son, feed him, put him back, and get back in bed. That's it. That's about all I had. and that was tough.
Right.
And I didn't get it. And that's when anxiety attacks started. And I hadn't had that. And I was like, oh, this is like depression on steroids with anxiety, because it's an attack. It takes over. Whoa. Oh, that's different. And
yes, it is.
I couldn't talk. I didn't want to talk about fluff. I couldn't talk about what came on TV last night when I can't get out of bed,
You definitely had to be quiet.
And I didn't want to deal with someone telling me that I shouldn't be able to get out of bed when I could not get out of bed.
Right.
And I remember having friends that I was speaking to at that time that hadn't heard from me, that were looking for me, that were reaching out to me, that were trying to find me, taking it very personal that I wasn't communicating with them. And even to people they were reaching out to find me, when it was being explained and I came back and I was being advised by my now fiance, but I was being advised, hey, you know, I know this is where you're at, but maybe you should just tell them where you are. Maybe you should share what's going on with you. Maybe you should help them understand, and kind of referencing to remember that learned lesson of what isolating myself does. I'm like, okay, maybe. And what I got back was startling. And what I got back was, well, if you feeling that depressed, you shouldn't be taking care of your kids. Then somebody needs to have your kids if you that sad.
And that's the reason that from childhood, you never...
I'm just going to keep it.
Yep, just keep it. Because I don't want to do this. This is stupid.
I think it takes people sometimes to understand mental health struggles, that it has to be isolated as depression, suicidal, anxiety. If it doesn't fit in those categories, just the struggling of having a hard time figuring it out is such a cloud of misunderstanding that people start placing their perceptions on what it should be like. And
giving it the weight that it should have.
Based to their...
Absolutely. Meaning, if you're telling me it's a 10 for you, and then you describe to me what your 10 is, and I'm like, girl, what?
That's a 3 for me.
That's nothing. That's a 3 for me. You don't get to tell me that it's a 3 across the board. Okay, it can definitely be a 3 for you.
Because your 10 might be my 2.
Absolutely.
Same people, just different circumstance. And you start feeling weak. And when you're kind of struggling with dealing with yourself, that becomes the seed.
Absolutely.
And then...
Of one of them bamboo.
Listen.
Girl, that root digs in deep.
And you're like, I mean, I am struggling to get up and do what I'm doing, but you don't perceive the strength of that because then someone just helped confirm that struggle. Then you're not patting yourself on the back saying, but you're getting up and you're doing that.
Yeah.
You're like, dang, yeah. And should one person have that type of power? Of course not. But I think what gets understood, if I was to tell someone I was raped and I didn't say anything, it would be probably 9 out of 10 an overwhelming support. Oh my God, talk about it. Share your story.
Because they get to decide what narrative that they're going to support and what narrative they're not.
Because that makes sense. If I say I'm having a hard time getting out of bed, you don't get to decide to tell me chin up,
buttercup,
get over it,
and give your kids up.
Get over it.
You don't get to do that. It's so unfortunate and so sad, and that's why kids don't voice these things, because they get the rebuttal of, what you know about struggle. You ain't paying no bill. Now I'm struggling. What you got to be sad about? I buy your clothes and I do this and do that, and then people forget that at the level that they are at, whatever happens to them, you do not get to disqualify it, and you do not get to take the value from it that it has. If it has the value of 10, you don't get to come in and say, nah, it's probably a strong 3. I just love it.
And I think I've shared through here of how it felt like on certain days when I got reached out to, because at that time, like when I speak of you sending me that sermon you did at the time, you had no clue.
No. I would just periodically send you stuff or send you a message. Hey, thinking about you.
Right. Haven't heard from you.
She was not responding to me.
Yeah.
But I just kept sending stuff like, hey, thinking about you. Hope everything's okay. because I had never
experienced me not responding.
Correct. Mm-hmm. But because I never experienced her responding, I knew something was happening.
Right.
I didn't know what. I didn't know at what level it was happening, or how, if it was a 10 for her or she was just busy. And then, after a while you're like, okay, this is a little bit more than just busy. I don't know what the hell's going on. So let me just constantly pour into her, that I'm thinking about her. And I was going through my journey with my relationship with God at the time, that it had just started to develop into something. And I was like, well, this is what's been helping me get through what I was going through. Let me share that. Maybe she'll get the same thing I got from it. Maybe she won't. I don't know.
Here's what was crazy. You were sharing sermons and sermon clips on your page around that time. You hadn't shared that one on your page that you sent me. And I was like, looking around the room like, what does she know? I don't know that she knows. Why? How does she know that this? Oh, he knows. That's what happened.
Right. That's
what happened. To bring it all full circle of why I even felt need to share this journey is that I'm gonna get this out to be able to wrap it up. Hearing my niece say that she felt imminently sad and did not know how to stop feeling sad about stopped my heart this past week.
Yeah.
Like
to even say it now.
And I think for me, it humbled me in a certain way. It humbled what I'm struggling with today. Yeah. It grounded me. I was overwhelmed with empathy, with understanding, with compassion. And I recognized how pivotal it was at that space that I would have never said that.
Right.
And she did. And I felt such a responsibility to the fact that now that I heard that, I could not unhear that.
Absolutely.
It's never going to go away. It doesn't mean that I am the one person in assignment to change that dialogue, but I felt responsible at the point that I had that knowledge of what my contribution was to support her, to encourage her, to uplift her, to pour into her. And I also identified with what it could have felt like at that time had I had that, if I had been able to express it myself too.
Absolutely.
I think I have a compelling compassion to youth. And I wanted to share this from the perspective, like Ariel said, as parents, that it may not always look away. I think sometimes it looks like changes and big changes, but was I disengaged in school or on and off in grades? Yes. But a lot of times that as well can get dismissed to, oh, they're just growing. They're just being kids. They're just going through things.
She lazy.
It will change. Yeah, it's going to change. I feel compelled to say this as adults, though, too. I think there is such a perception of what it has to look like. And the times that we're in are so impressionable of what when we're not in tune with ourselves, what we allow to make us feel worthy or not today.
Yes.
And we're walking around quantifying what we get to feel due to what's okay. You don't get to have a tough breakup because chin up, girl, breakups happen. But if you lost a parent, that makes sense. You can grieve about that.
And depending on who you're talking to, some people would tell you
that happens too. Right, you'll get that. That happens. That's life.
People die.
Yeah, I don't get to today. You don't get to if it's called postpartum, then struggling as a parent is okay.
But now, because that wasn't a thing before.
Right.
You better stop playing and take care of that baby.
But if you have gone through job changes, lost your place to live. So other traumatic things, you can't translate that into how you're struggling in parenting too. Chin up, things happen, keep it pushing. And I think being able to have those pause, being able to look at yourself, being able to forgive yourself, being able to not have to have it look a certain way, be it due to what anybody has to say, what you even if it's you that it's you're telling yourself it was supposed to go this way.
Right.
I think it is important to be in tune with those points of what negative seeds can grow into, and how we talk to ourselves is so important. What we give, and when you're approaching things with a glass empty approach to things, or when you're being nasty or negative, and then you find yourself saying, I mean, yeah, I shouldn't have been that way, but the reason I was,
and blah blah blah.
I think it doesn't have to look that you get to the point of not wanting to take your life or suicide to be a problem. And I think being able to identify that it is okay to struggle and be prone to find solution and support should be advised to anyone.
But because that's what my constant message to friends and family or whoever I'm talking to, even strangers, is it's okay that you're not okay.
Yes.
I think a lot of problem is people don't want to not be okay, yes, because I'm supposed to have it together. Mm-hmm. Not realizing that 98% of the people around you
don't got it,
and they're not okay either. But they're doing the exact same thing you're doing. They're out here pretending. Mm-hmm. And it starts from the age of a kid. Mm-hmm. You see kids, you see those parents talking about, I had no idea that that's how he was feeling. Yep. You have these 10 to 12-year-olds hanging themselves mm-hmm. in their closet. You have them being vocal,
yep,
and verbal
that they're
struggling. And instead of help being found for them, there's a conversation of, cut it out.
Yeah.
You're looking for attention. I don't know how many times I've seen where a parent says, I had no idea he was struggling like that. And part. It's like, but you knew he was struggling like this, because this is mm-hmm. He's telling you this right. is happening. The part you're figuring out today is new, but this has been happening. Mm-hmm. And I think as parents, we need to be more cognitive and more aware of what we are and are not allowing our kids to tell us. You want to hear the parts that you want to hear. You're telling your kids to stay in their lane. You're making them uncomfortable to be able to be emotionally available, so then they become emotionally unavailable. Mm-hmm. You're making it so that they don't feel comfortable coming to talk to you about anything, and they feel like they need to bottle it up and keep it inside. And those children become adults.
Yep.
And sometimes they don't make it to an adult because they decided they don't want to be here. Mm-hmm. And that carries sometimes. Maybe they do make it out, but they took it to college with them.
Right.
And then if they made it through college with it, they became, an adult in their early 20s with it. And
it doesn't always turn into suicide. It turns into drinking.
Yep.
It turns into a sex addict.
Promiscuous, yeah.
It turns into
a liar.
Yeah, things and habits that become coping mechanisms because you've bottled up what you're not going to talk about, and then you still don't have to because you tap into these other lanes, or it comes into anger and aggression and violence or different things and stealing and whatever that it can turn into. And I encourage, because if you can be accountable for that as an adult with yourself, I think it can translate into how you can give your kids some understanding.
Right.
But a lot of times as an adult, we're so detached with ourselves that you don't have that to give to your kids because you're just kind of spilling that same formula that was given to you.
Right.
It's going to be okay.
Right.
And they need more. Absolutely. And we have to be able to understand with ourselves when we need more. And it's a reason that I even started this to say that how proud I was of Ariel. And my best friend, I tell her all the time when I see her in action growing, like, hey, I'm proud of you, because I think we undermine what that can do for someone. Yeah. And it's not that you're trying to be the savior. And sometimes we are. And that's tough when you're putting everything on the line trying to prevent something. But just standing in support and being there. And if it's nothing but an ear, or like you said, do you want to find out? If you think this is attention, do you care to find out? And at the time, I know for where I was and it being an unfamiliar space, if my support wasn't beginning to shape up like it was, if I wasn't beginning to deal with myself, of something I was struggling with, because imminently I was struggling with being a parent of 2 kids at that time.
Right.
To get back, hey, I've been battling wanting to be here every day, that maybe you shouldn't have your kids, would have taken me out. It could have.
Yeah.
And I don't think as people we're as careful and intentional with people the way we should be. And if you can extend that to your kids and break the mold of the habit of just what you think it should be and look like, it could do wonders. That's my spiel.
I think this was very necessary. I appreciate you being so vulnerable and forthcoming. It was, your truth is important for somebody else. So I say thank you. And it explains a lot about you fighting to be here.
Right.
And why when you say, ooh, it was a struggle.
Right.
that this the backstory. It's a struggle because most of these things would have clean took her out. And she's using different tools that she didn't have before.
Right.
And it's never too late. You ain't never too old to add more tools to your tool belt. Absolutely. So I applaud you and thank you for being so honest, because this can help someone else with kids, or if they're dealing with it themselves.
And I didn't cry.
I'm proud of you. I didn't cry either. Have we cried?
No, we haven't.
Hey,
but when I just said that about my niece, it almost
it was shaky. It was shaky. I know it's coming though.
Oh, it's coming.
I know it's coming.
Yeah.
That day. We're gonna pause and record and pause and record and pause and record.
And then we're gonna say, we took the crying out.
Nah. Definitely edit that out. Yeah, I'm good. You good?
I'm good.
All right. I hope you guys got something from this, and we out.